Welcome to the DLLS Rangers Weekly Podcast, now part of the All City Network. Hit the subscribe button for YouTube and also become a DLLS diehard at www.alldlls.com. Now here's Jeff and John. Hey, everybody, welcome to the DLLS Rangers Weekly Podcast. This is episode number 44, and today is the end of the year wrap-up that Jeff and I are going to do. We don't have a guest today, but it's kind of hard to do that right at the end of the year. A lot of people, big leaguers, minor, they're all kind of going their separate ways. Some are going to Arizona, some are going home, some are cleaning out lockers. We'll start trying to get more guests next week again to do it, but you were out there today for the end of your press conference.
I was.
And so, go ahead.
Yeah, it was, I don't know, it was long. It was about 50 minutes. And because there
was
are a
it
lot
just
of questions.
Ross, just Ross and Chris?
Ross and Chris, that was it.
Okay.
And, a lot of things to talk about. Obviously, the managers first and foremost. And the way it was presented to us is that there's one leading internal candidate, and he went unnamed, but then some specific questions were asked about Skip Schumacher, and I think that's going to get wrapped up pretty fast. The coaching staff, I don't know if they're all going to be coming back, but I would expect most of them will be back. And then but that's the big thing. That's the first domino to fall. And
it has to be.
Schumacher, whoever the new manager is, will have a say in the coaching staff. Though I would imagine that if it is somebody internally, and if all the coaches are in good standing, as Chris Young said they are, then I would suspect that the staff would go unchanged, or maybe a very minor change. But I just can't see a huge turnover there. So that was the main topic of conversation, of course, because it's the pressing one, and then we moved on to the roster and the payroll and stuff like that.
Okay, so let's get into this manager thing real quick. So I have kind of seen through stuff you've tweeted. By the way, go to DLLS Sports, go to the DLLS Rangers, and look at the story Jeff wrote about some candidates. There were some candidates on that thing that kind of hit me out of left field, but I was like, wow, that kind of makes sense. On that, but I think we all kind of assume, it's kind of been assumed that Skip Schumacher's the guy that's kind of the way it's going. Who would any other internal candidates be?
Well, I don't know. That's an interesting question. I think you look at Brett Boone. Hey, he probably wants to manage. It's in his family's blood. Todd Hundley, who is not Todd, Nick. I always say Todd.
Yeah,
Todd Hundley is a different guy. Nick Hundley. Chris Young's good friend, who's been has been involved in player personnel and things like that for 4 years now. And then if you look at the current composition of the coaching staff, you figure the bench coach Luis Urieta, maybe he is a candidate, and then Bobby Wilson, I think, is another guy who wants to be a manager at some point, and maybe he gets that somewhere, but I don't know. Those would be four others off the top of my head, and then I don't know that there's anyone else. I don't. Michael Young doesn't want to do it.
California now, right?
Yeah, but his kids are. He could be living in Global Life Field, and I don't think he'd want to do the job as long as he has kids who are still at home. So I just think that it's Skip Schumacher, maybe a handful of other guys, and then they haven't even interviewed anybody externally yet, Chris Young said. Right. So, the bottom would have to fall out, I think, before they would consider guys like Jace Tingler or Derek Shelton or anybody like that.
Well, and let me ask this. So Schumacher is the name that keeps being bannered about. Yeah. Do you think if Schumacher were to get this job, would Boone stay? Because I kind of think hitting is a place where they might want to go a different way. Not that Boone was horrible. They did seem to hit better the second half of the year, kind of his old school thinking. But or maybe does he move to a bench bench coach role, and that might be something that Bobby Wilson moves to, maybe a bench coach role, kind of, stepping up into a chance to move on to be a manager. By the way, I think Bobby Wilson would be a hell of a manager. I think he'd be a great manager, but I think the Rangers would like to go with somebody that's already been that's my feeling. It kind of feels like with a veteran roster like this, you'd kind of think that. But do you think Boone would stay?
I do. He mentioned the other day on the radio that he wants to remain in coaching. And Chris Young today talked about how the offense from basically starting at the beginning of June was one of the better ones in the American League in terms of runs scored. And the philosophy is what changed. And that's, Brett Boone's philosophy of situational hitting and being harder to being tougher in the batter's box, understanding the strike zone a little bit better. And those are all things that I think Brett brought with him. And it's interesting because, that's the philosophy that Chris Young said he wants to have. And that this offseason, the hitters can go into their offseason knowing that they have to work on a variety of swings, not just their ace swing that hits the ball over the fence, but a swing that, your two-strike approach, or, getting a guy over to second base, or from second to third, stuff like that. So I would think that Boone is back. The whole pitching side is definitely, we'll come back if they want to come back. That's the other thing. Do these coaches want to come back?
Does Mike? Do you think Mike still wants to do it?
Yeah. Well, he and Skip Schumacher worked together in St. Louis, and Mike likes him. They're friendly, so it would seem to be a pretty good fit there. So I hope that's the case.
Well, there's no questions about the pitching staff as far as performance and what they did. Yes, the bullpen, you can always talk about. I mean, every team in Major League Baseball, let's just be realistic, blows saves. It happens, period. This bullpen had some tough moments. It wasn't anything like 2023 when they won the World Series and had a bunch of issues in the bullpen. It was far better this time, but okay. So if we're looking at, if Schumacher gets this job, then we think, what do you think a bench coach would be? Someone brought up.
Luis Urieta is going to be the bench coach because he was Schumacher's bench coach in Miami.
Okay,
so I think he will stay in the role that he has, unless maybe he gets an offer to manage somewhere. I don't know, but
there's 6 openings right now.
Yeah, I think that the bench coach is spoken for.
Okay. And so let me ask you this. If Boone doesn't come back, which it sounds like he may want to, and obviously, like you said, that it did improve. I mean, anybody arguing that, and I'm not saying that's all Boone's doing, but look, the offense got better in the second half of the season. They started but then again, they dealt with injuries, and those kids, what do you call them? They were calling them the little rascals or whatever. There was just a point where that magic was going to run out. I mean, that's just the realistic what was going to happen when you don't have your best players in the lineup. Okay, if not, who was Schumacher's hitting coach? I forgot the name. I looked up a guy that was his hitting coach that's now with, I believe, Minnesota or Cardinals.
I don't know. I really don't. But I'm sure the Rangers have some guys they would like to think of. If you want to look internally, I would say that Cody Atkinson, who's been the minor league roving hitting instructor for such a long time, would possibly merit some consideration. But there are so many guys out there, like, how, and it depends on how badly do these guys want to get, back into the job. If, let's say, they're a former manager, like Derek Shelton's been a hitting coach at various spots in his career. Would he want to step back into a hitting coach position like, let's say, Clint Hurdle did in 2010 before he was able to get a job managing again with the Pirates? So, there are ways to go with that. But I think that and maybe Brett gets a better offer somewhere else, or maybe he does get a managerial job interview or something like that. But I just kind of got the sense today that meaning the front office, they aren't so eager or expecting to have a huge staff turnover. John Mabry was the Marlins hitting coach in 24, and he's now with the Orioles.
That's who it was. Okay. And there was somebody, you know what, but I'll look it up. I looked it up the other day, and there was some other guy I looked up to. You're right. Mabry was one. There was someone that was with him the year they made the playoffs. I'm not gonna, the name's not going to pop into my head, so I have to go look it up, and I'm not going to do that right now. Okay, let's get into players. There's a lot of speculation. Obviously, you talked to Chris and them today. They are staying below the CBT. That's just a given.
Yeah. That seems not up for debate. And Chris Young, asked in specifics about the payroll. He said, "Well, we don't know what it is, but it'll be below the CBT." Now, the CBT is going to be
more
$247 million this year. And Chris said that they're not talking about slashing payroll.
Right.
It's just not going to be the same, but it's going to be competitive.
Right.
And perhaps he even suggested that it would be more than what some playoff teams this year have. And
right.
He pointed to them and was like, well, if they can do it, and probably Cleveland and Milwaukee come to mind, if they can do it, why can't we? And he's not wrong. He's definitely not wrong.
No. And I've said this all along. I like Ray Davis as an owner. I know a lot of people can get mad, and sometimes you think he needs to spend more money. He has spent money, but I also like a guy that is fiscally responsible. I don't want a team saddled with a bunch of crap, when you get to a certain point, if you're playing it right. He can spend more money at times, and I can argue that, but I also think there's this situation too. It sounds like top of the line free agents probably aren't going to be things that the Rangers are looking at internally. Some of the top line free agents doesn't mean there aren't free agents they're going to go after, but depending on where they come in under the CBT, it always seems to me that Ray might be a guy that if you come to the trade deadline, the Rangers are up and it's obvious what they need to go get at the deadline, he's going to be more inclined to say, yeah, you can bump up against or go because we're here now and we're there. These last couple of years, there's been no clear sign of where they're going to be at.
Well, last year they were over to start the season. And 23, they went over a hair. And then this year, there's really, I think they're over, but it's close.
Right.
In any event, it sounds like it's not going to be close.
Which leaves room if you need to make a move.
It does. And, the Rangers are without the TV money that they'd had for a number of years,
right?
From Bally and Fox Sports, their own TV network, while potentially profitable long term, didn't do a whole heck of a lot for the payroll this year. So there's that's probably the biggest sticking point or hindrance with the payroll. You look at where the money's tied up. There's half of the more than 100 million, like 130 million, tied up into 5 guys. And can you trade some of those guys? You probably can, but not without eating salary.
Right.
And look, if you eat salary, you're still saving money.
Right.
Or repurposing that money into another player or
right.
a free agent. I don't expect, like you said, I don't think Kyle Schwarber is headed to Globe Life Field.
I don't
but,
know. That was just an idea of mine, but I'm like, yeah, that ain't going to happen now.
But there are going to be good guys available, but the Rangers have to sort through what their priority needs to be after the manager, or running in concurrence with the manager, is which players are coming back, where do they need to improve, and how do they do it. And that'll come up in a couple weeks. They'll have the pro scouting meetings where they'll evaluate their roster, and then also see who the free agents are, and who potentially might be a trade partner. I think that from what we were able to infer, based on questions that were asked today, well, our suspicions all along seem to be true, that Adolis Garcia and Jonah Heim won't be back.
Okay. That's just a non-tender, right?
Well, it could be a non-tender. It could be a trade. I'm sure they would love to trade them. They tendered Nathaniel Loa contract last year and then traded him after the tender deadline. So we'll that's one way it could play out. But they'll those two guys aren't going to be back, and that's going to save you about, I don't know, 14 or 15 million.
Yeah.
So that's a little extra to play
with. You got
with.
Adolis around 10, and then Jonah's 4 or 5.
Yeah. So that goes on top of the money that's coming off the books with Malley and John Gray and Merrill Kelly and the bullpen guys. And then if you decide to trade Marcus Semien, and your trade partner is like, well, would you eat half of the salary? I would, depending on what you're getting back, or potentially turning that money into, then I think it's doable. Half seems like a decent number. With Jock Peterson, just based on the season he had, I think they'd be happy if they could get a team to take $5 million of the 18.5 player option that he's almost certain to exercise. So, it all adds up and gives you a little more flexibility to sign some guys or trade for some guys who have bigger contracts. And Chris Young, specifically mentioned trade. I mean, everybody, of course, every team signs free agents, but he made a point to mention trades. So yep. I wonder what those are going to look like, especially with a farm system that's, probably bottom heavy in terms of where the bulk of the talent is.
Right.
But when you kind of stop and pull back and think about it, between Santos and Corniel and Rocker, there are some good pitchers at the upper levels.
Right.
So that's a little comforting when you're thinking of depth, and then what is Teodo? Is Teodo a reliever, or is Teodo a starting pitcher? And so at least you have a wave of guys who are coming who are reasonably well regarded, and so I don't know that. I don't know that they need to go out and get a ton of minor league help or make that a focal point of their offseason. But it's still a thin system. So what would a trade look like? And are the Rangers going to be willing to trade with what little upper level talent they have?
Sure. Okay, so let's do this. Let's go through the lineup, and you tell me, and let's look at next year. Is Josh Young back next year? I think he is.
I am going to say yes, but it's close. I say yes because the finances, the financial end of it. That's why I say.
And if worst case scenario, if Josh Young is like he's been, and he has spurts and does that, he can end up a bench guy at least for one more year, and then they one more year to see what because let's be honest, when Young's going, he's good, and he plays a good third. He was an all-star 2023. So, maybe with everyone healthy and hitting, that's a good bottom of the lineup. So I think he is too. Corey Seager's going to be back.
Yeah.
Okay. Is Semien back?
I'm gonna say no.
Okay.
and just because I think he's still a big enough name and has enough respect around the league and has qualities that a team would like to have.
Plays good defense.
Yeah, and I think he, Chris Young mentioned today that Marcus, because he worked so hard, he has the ability to reinvent himself and maybe, put the last 2 years behind him. But Absolutely. I think that when it comes to money, I think the Rangers could end up saving some money there.
Okay. So we get over to first base. I think Berger's back. You think Berger's back?
I do. Yeah, I do. I don't know if there'll right. I don't know if there'll be a platoon partner with him, but I think he'll be back.
So let's go to Tellez. He's a free agent, obviously, but you don't think he's back? Okay.
No,
he's not. Obvious outfield that's going to be back is White Langford. We know he's going to be back. In fact, he may get extended. So you think, is that something that anyone asked about that today? Is that a question?
No, but I've asked about it in the past, and I think it's something that they usually will handle in the off season.
And they don't. They haven't.
I was told they would revisit it this off season.
Okay.
There's definitely interest on both sides.
Okay, and Evan Carter, is that going to be one of your starters next year? I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Sure.
So then we get to right field, Adolis Garcia. You say no. I say no.
Yeah, there's two straight years of decline. There have been some injuries in there. Adolis is young as a player because, again, he still has one more year of arbitration, but he didn't become a big leaguer till later because of all the defecting and such from Cuba. So right. I think he's a little bit older than his age. So I think that he's not going to be back.
He'll make a good bat for somebody. Let's be honest. He's a fan favorite. A lot of fans like him. He is colorful when he does that, but he saves the Rangers a lot of money, and I have no problem. I see that going with him going too. I wish him well. He's always been friendly, and I like him. Okay, behind the plate, is the starting catcher next year Higgy? Is that where they're starting?
I think he's one of the catchers. I don't know if he's the starting catcher, but he is under contract for next year, and he did nothing to make the Rangers think that he shouldn't be back.
And he did well. I think everyone likes him doing that. Okay, let's go to bench players. I think Josh Smith's back.
Well, we skipped over Jonah. I don't think Jonah's back.
Jonah. Yeah. Well, we both had kind of thought that too. So you think Jonah is either traded or
non-tendered. Yeah.
Non-tendered. Okay. So then we go to the bench. We've got Smitty, which I'm assuming is back. He's been invaluable, and if nothing else, is a defender to play all over the place.
Yeah.
A couple of guys are free agents. Do they have a chance to come back, like Hellman? Well,
Hellman is arbitration eligible, so
he's under contract. Okay.
Yeah, he's pre-arb. He's going to stay in the system.
Okay. So if it didn't clear, then you have what's his name, the switch hitter. I'm blanking. It's Haggerty. Is Haggerty under, or is he a free agent?
He's arbitration eligible as well. Now, they can keep him, or if they need a roster spot, he can be a DFA too.
Sure.
But he's not a free agent.
He's going to head into spring on this roster then.
Potentially. Yeah.
More than likely. Okay. That's what you see. I have felt all along that I thought, quite honestly, I thought that trading was something they would look at, maybe getting a bat or whatever. If they're going to save money, that's probably the way they're looking. Now let's go to the guys that became free agents. Are Merrill Kelly or Malley or any of those guys someone that might come back?
I would rate Malley ahead of the others. I think that Merrill Kelly is going to get a pretty nice deal, maybe more than the Rangers want to pay at this point. I don't know what a Malley contract would look like, but I know that Mike Maddox would like to have him back.
I read that.
And Malley made 16.5 this year, but I don't think he made but 17 starts. So, the injuries are going to be a concern with him. So do you give him an incentive-laden deal? Do other teams guarantee more money and he takes that? I don't know, but I know that he, gets along well with DeGrom and Eovaldi, and I'm guessing he would want to be part of this team at some level, or not some level in the rotation. Just depends on if the money's going to be there.
What about Colomb? Coulomb,
Maton,
yeah,
Sean Armstrong, Hobie Milner, they all want to come back.
They're all free agents, right?
Yeah, when Maton signed and Coulomb, they both talked about they've had the Rangers on their sights previous off seasons. Maton lives, I think, in Scottsdale, but he's been trying to get with the Rangers. He said the last 2 off seasons. Coulomb lives in Richardson. He's your neighbor, John. So
he is. I didn't know he lived up here.
Yeah, so he I'm pretty sure would want to stay around. And Hobie Milner, who lives in North Richland Hills, former guest of the show, obviously he wants to stay. Now I think Chris Martin's going to retire. Just he dealt with a lot of injuries this year, and he's
Arlington
39. Guy. Yeah, Garcia is back. You think Cole Winn has made a name for himself and would be a front runner for a bullpen job. You still have Mark Church, who dealt with injuries this year. So they're
is that a shoulder thing? What is that he's dealing with?
Yeah, I think it was shoulder. No, it was elbow this time around.
Okay.
But he didn't have surgery, and he was pitching at the end of the year.
Okay. I love Church. That's a guy, if he gets it together, he throws hard. Boy, did you watch what is it, Schlittler? Is that how you say his name last night?
Schlitter? Yeah.
Schlitter? Did you see that?
Oh, yeah, it was good. It was really good.
Oh, my God, that guy. How do the Yankees always find somebody in this? He was a 7th rounder. I saw that out of like Northwestern or something. And it's like, they just have some sort of, you know what? If I had all the money in the world, I'd go to Tampa Bay and just hire their entire pitching development crew and just bring them over and double all their salaries. Just say, you're going to come work here. And the Yankees have it too. They're good at developing. Okay, so is there any fit that you see out there free agency wise? We're not looking big names, but some guys that are going to be coming free agents that might fit well here for a decent price. I think more than likely it's going to be in some sort of pitching capacity that they find somebody that they can get here. I have no doubt they'll sign some minor league deals to guys that are for depth. The Rangers have done that well and ended up guys finding places there. But is there any bats or arms that probably aren't going to be top of the market that might be names to keep an eye on?
Well, I wonder about Luis Arraez, just because I
love him.
He just hits. He doesn't hit the power, but he's a guy who is a tough out, and he can get on base. Obviously, I think that he would be an interesting guy. He's not going to make a ton of money because he doesn't hit for power, and he doesn't really have a big have a true position. So I would
playing
like
first base some. Is that what he's been playing? Or
I think you could maybe see that one. You look at like the outfield market. It's Tucker and Schwarber and Bellinger.
Yeah.
And, Luis Robert. There's a club option on his deal. I can't imagine that it gets picked up. Maybe he needs to change the scenery, and that's interesting because he's a talented guy who can hit the ball.
Yeah, he really is.
And he's a really good defensive player. So I'm not sure on that one, pitcher wise, they're just, I'm curious, what is a Dylan Cease contract going to look like? Because obviously the Rangers really liked Dylan in the past, and when you are making out a payroll, you're not just looking at this year, you're looking at future payrolls. And does Dylan Cease on, let's say, a 5-year deal, that might be looking pretty good here when Eovaldi and DeGrom's deals are done.
Right.
And again, Jack Leiter looks like he's won a rotation spot. I would put Jake Latz in the rotation.
Why not?
Good. You still have Kumar Rocker and like we were talking about earlier, Santos and Corniel. So you have guys in the system who could develop, but you have some guys who are more sure things via free agency. But it all comes down to what's the money going to look like, and we'll have to see on that. But there are some guys that are out there on the closer side. I do wonder about Devin Williams, who is with the Yankees. He was acquired last offseason in a trade with the Brewers to be the closer, and it just didn't work out, right? So has his stock been hurt? Would he be looking to sign just a one-year deal, maybe a make good year? Would he take less money if he knew he was going to be the closer? And was that something the Rangers would want to do? I think it depends on a lot of other things, who they decide to move on from, how much it would cost to replace them and to make upgrades to the offense. But I certainly think that there might be some kind of bigger name relievers out there who would be of interest to the Rangers.
I wonder if the guy on this staff that might end up, in my opinion, if maybe he is a future closer, I wonder if that's not Winn. He has looked. He throws hard. He doesn't throw 100 miles an hour, but he brings it mid to high 90s. His off speed stuff works, and man, he gets outs. He strikes people out. He looks good doing that. He seems comfortable for sure doing that. But he got into leverage situations this year and did not disappoint. Everyone has a blown save or whatever, but I've kind of liked what I've seen. And he's certainly nothing else. He's at least a setup guy or a seventh or eighth, the leverage guys, the back end guys.
Yeah.
He certainly seems like a guy fit for that role.
Well, it's been a long road for him, and then 3 years at AAA. That's never a good thing, but they've kind of reinvented him, I don't know if the door is completely shut on him being a closer now that he's comfortable as a reliever. But this is your first round pick in 2018.
Sure,
you certainly hope to get more than just a seventh inning setup guy out of him.
Sure.
Maybe he becomes the closer. Maybe you throw him back into the rotation. But I would suspect that at this point, he's definitely in the bullpen to start next season.
He's in. Yeah, he's a roster. I think he's on this roster for sure. And he's under control. So, I like Cole. He's a friend of the show. We always pull for these guys. We want them all to succeed, and do that. But he's certainly. I love what he's become. I love that he found it. Now, the big concern with him is now that we all wondered about that ABS and what it did to him at AAA. Well, now it's in the big leagues. So, that was because he rolled right up through the minor leagues till he got to that ABS, and it seemed like, and it might not have been the ABS that derailed him, but it was easy to pick on that because he got up there and the ABS was all of a sudden in play, and a lot of guys that are good can live right on the edge or right outside the zone. If you got people, when you get higher up, they don't chase as badly. You've got to at least be hitting right there on the black somewhere. And he seemed to be missing a lot. He was walking a lot before but he's done well now. So we'll see. I mean, I'm just bringing that up because you have to. I mean, look, he struggled in AAA where there was an ABS system. Now it's coming to the big leagues. So this ought to be interesting.
Yeah, but he did do a lot better this year at AAA. That's where he started the season. He didn't allow an earned run until after his first big league stint. So I just think you see him pitching with confidence and knowing he can get out. So and he's from Colorado, so that's always going to be something I look at.
Yeah. Well, I think let's wind this thing down, guys. It's going to be a little shorter. We don't have a minor league portion this week. We'll get into that next week.
Yeah, the fall league opens on Tuesday. And,
right.
The Rangers have 8 guys playing in Surprise, including Sebastian Walcott, Corniel, Teodo, and Santos. So, and Malcolm Moore, who's
I was about to say, isn't Malcolm Moore going?
It's a pretty sharp contingent going out there to work on some things, get some exposure to better competition, and of course, the fall league is heavily scouted. So there's some guys out there who maybe have a nice fall league. Maybe they can turn into trade bait.
Absolutely. And let me tell you what, watch those box scores, guys. That's a big place to see we've seen guys go to that fall league and kind of figure things out and do well, and then all of a sudden next year you're seeing them on a big league roster playing and stuff like that. They really kind of, because if they go and succeed out there, then they're facing the best minor leaguers there are. That people don't send slugs out there; they're sending good players.
Yeah, for sure. And Caglione played last year for the Royals, and he was in the big leagues this year. I don't know if Nick Kurtz played or not, but if he did, you're talking about a rookie of the year. So Walcott, he might make his debut next year. He did come up today, but the Rangers, Chris Young said, are going to try their darndest to make sure that they do what's right by him, and if that means keeping him in the minors instead of bringing him to the majors, then that's what they're going to do.
Look, he's 20 years old. He's going to be 20 years old next year. He's still very young. He is not one of these other 20-year-olds that were hitting 40 home runs when they came up at 20 and 21. He's a good player, though, at 20 years old. It's kind of like an Elvis Andrus, who was 20 when he made it to the big leagues, and just talented, all together, wasn't a big power hitter. I like Sebastian. Yeah, don't rush him till you need him. I like to see guys force their way. That's what I want to see.
Yeah.
Where you just can't ignore what they're doing anymore.
Yeah, I think that's what it'll take. I think he starts at AA and is there maybe a month. If it's a good month, and then if he goes to AAA and is has 20 home runs at the All-Star break, and the Rangers have a need, then maybe that's where it happens. But right now,
can't ignore it.
I think that Sebastian Walcott's on a perfect schedule. No need to rush it. Don't get him here until he's ready.
All right, guys, we're going to wind this one down. We will be back next. We'll get someone on here next week as we start diving in. There'll be more off-season news as we go. Maybe by this time next week, I think we'll have a manager. I don't think they're going to wait around on this. It's probably don't you think that they're probably going to have something done by the end of next week?
Yeah, and if they don't, then I think it means that they have been turned down and need to start looking externally.
And you start doing extra. Yeah, if you start seeing that they're interviewing people, that means that other options have come up, and maybe it wasn't. All right, guys, for Jeff Wilson, I'm John Moore. Thanks for hanging along for this one. Until next week, we'll see you at the yard.